How to thrive in an economy rife with inflation and put it to work for you. As of March 2022, inflation has reached a level that is large, it is in charge, and it has increased by 8.5%, which is the largest increase over the course of a year since 1981. Woohoo, aren't we lucky? The fact that inflation does not have the same effect on all prices, however, means that not everything is lost. This is a period of uneven inflation, which is something we are going to discuss today. Almost everything is becoming more expensive, but certain things have been hit much harder than others. What exactly is it? This thing called inflation. The view remains the same, but the seasons change. Much like inflation, same product, different price. Inflation is one of those terms that everyone thinks they should know and assumes everyone else knows, but in reality, a lot of us aren't sure but are afraid to ask because we assume everyone else knows. Inflation is one of those terms that everyone thinks they should know and assumes everyone else knows. Before this year, my understanding of inflation was rudimentary at best, but after experiencing it firsthand, I find that I have a great deal of curiosity regarding its nature. The baby needs some hot defs, so let's get to work on those. According to what is stated in this article that was published in the New York Times, the term loss of purchasing power over time refers to inflation, which indicates that your dollar will not go as far tomorrow as it did today due to the effects of inflation. I like this definition because it is very straightforward and it is not difficult to understand how it relates to our everyday lives. Since most of us have the same amount of money to spend despite the fact that the price of most goods has increased, this indicates that we are able to purchase fewer goods. People, it's not great at all. It's not great at all. What is the root cause of inflation? The New York Times sheds light on. In the short term, high inflation can be the result of a hot economy, which is defined as an environment in which individuals have access to large amounts of credit or have access to large amounts of extra cash, and they want to spend it. If customers are purchasing goods and services with sufficient enthusiasm, then businesses might be forced to increase prices because there is not enough supply to meet demand. But inflation can and does fluctuate based on developments that have little to do with the state of the economy. In fact, this happens quite frequently. Because of dwindling oil supplies, the price of gas may rise. Problems in the supply chain can cause goods to remain in short supply, which drives up prices. Early autumn perspective. Does anything sound familiar? We kind of hit a perfect storm here for inflation with the pandemic, the disruption to the global supply chain, the war in Ukraine, and the subsequent increase in oil prices. Because of the following factors, we are also partly to blame. Consumers, who have collectively built up large savings thanks to months in lockdown and repeated government stimulus checks, are spending robustly, and their demand is driving at least some of the inflation that is occurring. In addition to the pandemic stimulus checks, a lot of people were given a significant amount of additional money to spend because their student loan payments were suspended. I also appreciate the clear definition offered by the European Central Bank, which is as follows. Prices of goods and services are subject to fluctuation at all times in market economies. Some prices rise, some prices fall. It is possible for there to be inflation if there is an overall increase in the prices of goods and services, not just of specific items. This indicates that you are able to purchase fewer things for €1 today than you were able to yesterday. To phrase it another way, inflation has the effect of lowering the value of the currency over time. Now that we have a basic understanding of what inflation is and the factors that contribute to its rise, let's talk about what we can do to combat the problem. Where will inflation ultimately end up? Winter view. Nobody is aware of it. We don't know if things will return to normal or if we'll end up in an inflationary spiral where it just keeps going up and up and up. Either way, we could be in for a rough ride. Everything that I've written here today has the potential to be either terrible advice or fantastic advice, given the two extreme possibilities that exist. This is why, if things return to normal, it will have been very smart to delay purchases, and I will look like a genius as a result of this decision. If inflation continues to rise at its current breakneck pace, I will look like an idiot because it would have been much more prudent for me to buy a lot of stuff before prices increased rather than waiting until they had already increased. Nobody, not even I, can predict what will take place, and that includes me. However, I will say this, looking for additional ways to cut costs is not going to be counterproductive in any way. You won't put yourself at a disadvantage in the future simply because you have some money saved up. And if you absolutely have to make a sizable acquisition right now, like a house or a car, you might be getting a fantastic deal on those things. Or perhaps you are grossly overpaying for something. But once again, nobody is sure. Therefore, it is best not to freak out. Take command of what is in your power to command. The economy is not something that any of us, including our mothers, can influence. We are unable to control inflation on our own. And there is no one weird trick that will allow us to make it through an inflationary period unscathed. Despite everything, try not to freak out. Late fall view. What we can do is make sure that we are aware of which products and services are experiencing price hikes, as well as the ways in which we can craft household budgets that are nimble enough to react to the most egregious of price increases. Because inflation is a widespread problem that affects all aspects of the economy. One tactic to combat it is delaying purchases and avoiding the acquisition of items that are not essential. This is always a good strategy if you are trying to be ultra-frugal. But it is even more true if you want to shield yourself from the shrapnel that inflationary shrapnel can cause. Are you able to refrain from or postpone the purchase of smaller items such as clothing, accessories, and provisions for the home? Small appliances. When you think about it, this also applies to large appliances, toys, games, and literature. I have no more examples to give you, but I think you get the point. Can you delay buying big things like cars, houses? Midsummer view. The goal is to temporarily cut back on spending in categories that are considered discretionary. This is beneficial not only to you but also to the economy as a whole, because inflation is essentially the result of there being too many dollars chasing after too few goods. Of course, there are times when you simply have no choice but to make a purchase. For example, suppose you've been putting off getting a car for years, but now you have no choice but to buy one. You gotta do what you gotta do. If you are currently in the process of renovating your kitchen and need to purchase a refrigerator, you gotta do what you gotta do. Delaying the purchase of something, however, may be a good idea if you have the ability to do so and do not have an immediate need for the item. The category of controlling what we can control easily accommodates the category of discretionary spending. The vast majority of us do not immediately require a new handbag or pair of shoes. The majority of us have the ability to put off making certain purchases. We can choose to wait and see what happens in the meantime while we use our funds to purchase the things that we simply cannot put off, such as food, childcare, medicine, and so on. Assessing the spending patterns of the pandemic. During the pandemic, many of us had to adjust our spending patterns in order to survive the mandatory quarantines, stay-at-home mandates, remote work and school, the impending end of the world, etc. And despite the fact that the pandemic is in no way over, we have moved on to a new stage. The majority of us have either resumed at least a portion of our routine from before the times, or we have adjusted to our new normal. In light of this, you should make it a priority to examine some of the spending patterns that you developed during the dark years. Early spring view. Things like takeout orders and delivery service from restaurants, services that deliver groceries to your home, charges for shipping in order to avoid shopping in stores. Streaming services include television, music, movies, and video games. The Cheese of the Month Club, the Wine of the Month Club, the Ballpoint Pen of the Month Club, magazines, workout apps, Box O Stuff subscriptions, and meal prep boxes are all examples of monthly subscription services. We were stranded inside, so we brought some cool stuff for the house, like exercise equipment, indoor bouncy houses, and home decor. A home manicure kit, a home cocktail making kit, aromatherapy candles, custom dental floss, and miniature knit sweaters for corgis are some of the treats you could buy for yourself as a treat. If you have developed the routine of routinely ordering, paying for, or subscribing to these services, take a moment to reevaluate your situation and determine whether or not you are able to reduce your use of these services in order to create more room in your budget for the things that you are unable to do without. Reevaluating your spending habits is a good idea at any point in time, regardless of whether or not inflation is on the rise. Things that simply cannot be discarded: groceries, transportation, utilities, housing. 1. Groceries. Because not all foods are affected in the same way by inflation, we have the most leeway to reduce our spending when it comes to food. According to the most recent data from the Consumer Price Index, there was a 16% increase in beef. There was a 13.7% rise in the price of meat, poultry, fish, and eggs. Fruits and vegetables rose 3.2%. Although I enjoy a good burger as much as the next person, I won't be purchasing any beef for the foreseeable future. You can protect yourself from the worst of the blows simply by deciding not to purchase the item in question. In order to circumvent the increased costs of meat, chicken, fish, and beef over the past few months, we have gradually shifted toward a diet that is more vegetarian in nature. If you are able to make temporary adjustments to the way you eat, that is one of the simplest things you can do to reduce the amount of money you spend. In addition to that, doing this threw a wrench into our normal meal rotation, and we've really enjoyed trying out some new recipes. As always, the following frugality guidelines for eating healthily on a budget are applicable. Avoid eating foods that have been pre-packaged, prepared, or made. Cut down on your consumption of meat and dairy products. Buy in large quantities the raw ingredients. We just recently made a purchase of 50 pounds of organic whole wheat flour, 50 pounds of organic oats, and 50 pounds of dried chickpeas, and the prices were comparable to what they were the previous year. These ingredients will be used to make bread, oatmeal, and roasted chickpeas. Prepare as many of your meals from scratch as your time constraints and physical condition will permit. It wouldn't be a bad idea to check out the local thrift store right now to see if they have any slow cookers, pressure cookers, Instapots, or bread machines available for purchase. It's never too early to get started using dried beans in your cooking. It's never too early to start making your own bread and sweets in your kitchen. It may not be possible for everyone to participate in this activity due to time constraints or health concerns. However, if you are able to participate in any or all of these activities, you should do so. As a side note, I am aware that some people suffer from food allergies or have specific health-related reasons for eating or not eating certain foods. I am not suggesting that anyone should eat things that are dangerous or inaccessible to them, so please don't come after me. The consumption of meals in restaurants has increased by 8%, which is another justification for putting more emphasis on food prepared at home. In the past few months, we have been eating out less, which is something I have been desperately missing. However, I am aware that right now I want to buckle down and spend less money. 2 methods of transport. Because this is one area in which many of us do not have a great deal of control, I chose to focus on the possibilities for change in the food and beverage industry. If you can drive less, do it. If you have the ability to spend more time working from home, you should. Take advantage of ride-sharing opportunities or public transportation if you can. If you absolutely have to get a car, prioritize getting one with good gas mileage. But getting a car for that reason alone is not something I would ever recommend. In point of fact, it would be best for you not to buy a car at all, whether it be a used or new one, for the following reasons. The price of used cars has skyrocketed by a staggering 35.3%. The number of new vehicles has increased by 12.5%. Given this, you shouldn't turn a problem with $40 worth of gas into a problem with $40,000 worth of new car payments. Again, I completely understand that there are times when you simply cannot put off purchasing a car any longer. Wait it out. However, if you have the ability to do so and if purchasing a new vehicle would be more of a nice than a necessity for you, caution is advised once more. It's possible that prices will continue to rise, in which case you should probably go out and buy 10 cars right now. Who could possibly know? 3 utilities. Another hot and humid summer. If an energy audit is available in your state, now is the time to sign up for one. You may be able to lower your energy costs, or there may be state-funded programs that offer rebates or tax credits for things like installing a more efficient water heater, etc. In either case, you may be able to save money. You should your electric company to see if they have any programs or rebates that you can participate in, and you should also apply for them. A simple do-it-yourself solution is to go out and purchase an energy monitor, which you can then connect to each of your devices in order to determine which one uses the most electricity. For real estate, comparatively to the modes of transportation, the majority of us do not have a great deal of control over the locations of our homes. It would be to your advantage to put off purchasing a new home for as long as possible. However, this is not always possible. When you absolutely need a home, the only option left is to go out and buy one. If you are in a secure housing situation, you should count your blessings. Do you recall that I mentioned some time ago that it would be a smart idea to investigate the possibility of refinancing your mortgage when interest rates were at all-time lows? I hope you did so. Be extremely grateful that you have a mortgage with a fixed, low interest rate if you are the owner of a home at this time, because your mortgage is denominated in dollars from before inflation, while your salary is increasing as a result of inflation. Having a mortgage with a fixed interest rate and a low monthly payment can be a good hedge against inflation. When I work with people who are in the accumulation phase of their financial lives, one of the reasons I frequently advise them not to pay off a fixed, low-interest rate mortgage is because periods of inflation put inflation to work for your benefit. Employment, primordial springtime. In addition to making modifications to your spending, you should investigate the possibility of increasing your income in some other way. The current labor market is presenting a number of intriguing challenges and opportunities, including the following. The current unemployment rate of 3.6% is at a record low. In a broader sense, this indicates that a lot of businesses are looking to fill open positions, but there are not a lot of people applying for those positions. What this indicates is that now is most likely an excellent time for you to put in a request for a pay increase with your current employer. Try to find a job that pays you more. Make a formal request to your employer for more leeway in your schedule so that you can save money on other expenses. A look at interest rates. The current increase in interest rates is not favorable for some things, such as mortgage interest rates, but it is favorable for other things, such as high-interest savings accounts. Check the interest rate that you are earning on your checking and savings accounts, and if it is not a solid percentage, consider moving your money to a different bank. It is also a good idea to make certain that you have a valid credit card strategy that is yielding rewards that you will actually make use of. My most recent article on how to accomplish this task is as follows. Using my cashback credit card, I was able to make $712.59 in profit. Flex your frugal muscles. Midwinter. If you want to show off your frugal skills, an inflationary period is the perfect opportunity to do so. My monthly expense reports demonstrate that the degree to which I practice thriftiness ebbs and flows over the course of several years. Since the beginning of the year 2022, you may have observed that I have taken steps to reduce the amount of money that our household spends. You, much like I, have probably honed your ability to save money over the years, and the time has come for you to put those skills to use. I don't see this as something that will last forever. My interpretation of this is that it means I'm going to spend a bit less mindfully while inflation runs around like a frat boy with a red Solo cup of jungle juice. Summary: try not to freak out. When they are in a state of panic, people never make wise choices regarding their finances. It is important to be aware of the distinction between the fixed costs you incur and the discretionary costs you incur. You are welcome to participate in my free Uber Frugal Month Challenge if you need assistance locating those. Consider eliminating, delaying, or cutting back on some of your discretionary spending if you can. Investigate the possibility of lowering your fixed costs. Determine which goods are most negatively impacted by inflation, and devise a plan to steer clear of purchasing those goods whenever possible. Do not pay off a mortgage that has a fixed rate and a low interest rate. Put in a request for a pay increase, or look for a job that pays more. Check the interest rate on your checking and savings accounts to ensure that you are actually earning something from your money. Develop a strategy for using your credit cards that will earn you rewards that you will actually put to good use. Make the most of this opportunity to strengthen your ability to live frugally. Be aware that no one can predict the future, and that things could return to normal or inflation could continue to rise. Neither of these outcomes is guaranteed.